the first to know. Nsem-Pii TV.
Samuel Koku Enidoho, former Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Dudona Efren de Bull. Na Koku Edina Nichiremu ewo Twitter ya na yefrene X akwetwe ensem kakra. Koku chiremu a wa ene or can plain enye plain fa say the NDC is a bunch of jokers. According to Koku Enidoho, why should a government in opposition allow the ruling government to unveil its manifesto before them? Koku said, couldn't you work as I say? Emre biano wa opposition. Una wutumi identify the loopholes, the flaws of the ruling government and in your warrior. Immediately, especially obi a what opposition for 8 years there. I was saying to me a day or policy statement. Yeah, friend the manifesto ebe to John 10. Because by 7 years I can 8 years. Now what to me a loopholes a whole door. Yeah, a war a memona the ruling government ibu. Now what to me a the various gaps, the various mistakes. Yeah, the ruling government yeah. Over to me a so they are punishing. But this is not the same for the NDC. The NDC led by John Dramani Mahama is a bunch of jokers because they've been in opposition for close to 8 years, yet still they find it very difficult identifying loopholes, lapses, and gaps in the governance led by His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the NPP. And Koku Chirima was saying no serious opposition leader should allow the government of the day to release its manifesto before you do. Koku said to me, say, "Adi esa hanu yiye kura ne." Some weeks ago, and I'm more NDC to your moko launch the youth manifesto. Or say a manifesto is a manifesto. Every manifesto, its critical areas. The NDC, Edi Kanya release the youth manifesto. Person who say, "A woman manifesto," and you want to buy about youth. That's how we want. Look at the kind of presentation. Yeah, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, in Ghana Secondary and Technical School in Takoradi in the Western Region, Nano Sunday. Everything in that manifesto borders on Ghana's development and improvement in all sectors. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia ndi kaya ankofa an aspect of the manifesto and farm Ghana for say we youth manifesto, we men manifesto, we women manifesto, and we agriculture manifesto. There be going to be a way. He presented the manifesto na capture every facet of this country's development, from agric to education to sports to youth to infrastructure to civil servants, to job creation, to taxes, to corruption, baby, manifesto ni capture. And according to Koku Enidoho, we transidin na utie Sunday manifesto Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia launch na. It is a manifesto that is one, showing the loopholes. Two, apart from say show no, a sign predicted current loopholes. 4. Now a devices solutions to the loopholes. And this is a complete manifesto according to Koku Enidoho. The Koku Chirima manifesto na Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia presented here. Chere problems are omayno akom with respect to nyoma bi ayaye. And currently problems are omayni kom. Owi ana wa chere solutions are ono ede ba. Ede ba basis sa problems nyina. Nti enyemie talk. Yes, be ba meye we, but problem e wo ho in energy nie. Me ba sa problem sei e na me ya solve. Problem e wo ho since time immemorial corruption ni. Me ba sei na me ye e dia solve sa problem na me dia improve upon revenue collection. According to Koku Enidoho Samuel, we any a friend a proper thought through manifesto. It is because say NDC deɛ na ɔmo yɛ to hɔ no according to Kokoredo ɔmo hwɛ mu a it is only identifying problems but no solution. Abandon promises obey say want to me anye abandon promises obey say want to me anye enu nti na according to Kokoredo be say ne a party in opposition yanka wo hunu problems any gaps in governance. Yeah, I was saying presenting the manifesto that no what am still the ruling government mo edin the manifesto and yeah. Kokoredo edin Nsem a wotwe ye wo Twitter nyi ba wie no tirima. And they even if said the NDC na omo any new idea na ko mo be present o manifesto no ma immediately omo de be ba Ghana for be human who say it is captured in the manifesto of the NPP. What it means is that they have copied what the NPP intends to do, making their manifesto launch useless. We any Nsem kakra Samuel Kuku Sitofe anedo akotre ewane X handle anwumre ya ewon sanfofo
say nse binyo no bi na be ka kire ni sese anase ono so de awa chichiri woni tirim po se yemfa nko ha na beko. One of them community mining adwuma ne to say one o mining be geological survey, 2 yebema community mining licenses no more, 3 resources are here, which is funds and machinery, gold catcher machines ya start e wa say no nsa beka eno ma 4 mu wia ya to ye to ne refining wa say ne the back here currency no. It's a whole ecosystem which grows mining but also reduces the tendency for Nkofo to go prospecting and mining in water bodies. Na no we na sanafu we na say soldier for ni navy for ni ade aties nsuo so a omo pam Nkofo afi so a obia beka say aba mu duebo ade ya ya mama wa say nko ase, why are you still insistent say opese uko ekoye ewo ho no. So it's a two-sided strategy. And you who say 2 sides ni na be adwuma so me.
Mayemra because of time to tax reforms. And maybe first off no clarify this. The promise to teacher for any nurse for, because we know say previously there was a policy so be a nurse not so import a car eba or enjoy tax waivers be and at a point no that policy was abused then it was suspended along the line. Is that the same promise?
So what are we the all can even including the capacity of the vehicle that you can bring.
Okay.
And we also say I'm say 1.8 cc, not more than 1.8 cc. In fact, in our contemplation, within a certain period, wouldn't mean it be like we say why I say we're a car dealer because if we a teacher now we're nurse now every week be and I say
the care
didn't go for all the send out no. And there are guidelines on it that are aimed at addressing sending for abusing the last time. You rightly said there was abuse. Just until now, even the capacity of vehicle, how many vehicles you can bring in for a period. No, are there per se? Yema Ghanaian na or ye nurse and now a teacher, or a medical worker, no teacher, no per se or talk car. Nemo so better the IAN or Ghana say be or per se important. Taxation na and I say duties na. Yeah, to me, a year as part of incentives, I did more. So say also more money in a particular capacity. The point is that the lessons are or the implementation of the previous ones. No, and on year himself boy and near to me a way without people abusing it like the first one was.
It is a promise say a buying a sort teacher for us or matoka.
Oh, in fact, me who another variation will be say a buying say or better car teacher say one teacher one car one cancer. Who says in the confusion shut up is up to one cancer or say in fact he was specific say 1.8 cc and now obe to me at the bum without paying duties on it. And I can tell you say the details of it is within that 4-year period. No, and that is an incentive that we are making available to you
for teachers any other. The criticism said a government that promised teachers laptops teacher for if that same government there promise it, because that's some of the criticism I've read on social media. Say, so our government now is trying to promise car, then teacher for should treat that promise with the contempt it deserves.
To correct, government name promises or bema teacher ni be a car. Or say obema kwama wa kraka if you brucha emro 1.8 cc no odi abemu wuntu ahu duties and then under the guidelines that have been provided no what to me the abemu President Kufuor did something like that for doctors
yes,
for doctors
and even nurses at a point.
And it worked smoothly until last minute in 4 years. Say, gym na fi nipa ba ko peso crackers be ya afi bo no de pick up beer 2 point something near there in eba. And then when it was tried a second time, no, the abuse was also getting a bit higher. So say guidelines but it's not say buying so be talker. I'm a teacher for one kasada.
For the sake of policy coherence, no, wouldn't you rather have probably said, say, ye be a quine amount for imported cars, but when we have 6 or so vehicle manufacturing companies in Ghana, why don't they buy from these companies? Maybe amount of time I would be trying rather than
no, you see what be a number of tax incentives to they could beyond teacher ni.
Okay.
Obi bia or person automated in Ghana vehicles, CB tax incentives are being available to everybody. Number 2, Dr. Baumiamo also at this person the credit scoring system eba Ghana, so that they are secondly paying over a period a easy amount, so that you are able to pick up that vehicle, that made in Ghana vehicle that has a tax,
which is brand new,
and pay over a period. Obi horse on pay. Ni brebi ewo Germany, wachena car bi 1.6 into a person there no ba because or a teacher. So to me, echo through the process, it procures our vehicle no. Na what they back on me anymore. Dr. Baumia say, only teacher for any nurse for any adherence. It's one of their requests. Okay, so me ready me talk. They already kayama incentives for who Ghana has say. Let me person me dear no ba. Can I get some help there? I'll say no problem. We'll give that one to you. So it's not counterproductive. Saying kaya there, ye and I say ye deny the ye or Ghana in favor of this one and kaya counterproductive. In this case, the ye or Ghana crumple a bigger and larger benefit pool into any counterproductive.
The thing on tax reforms and the kind of policy proposals I'm looking at, say, because of the current economic challenges and the fact that even assessing the Eurobond market a problem, at least in the short to medium term, why would any government decide rather say my very constant source of revenue, which is taxes, afe mo bema tax amnesty or more de tax kanyina ye YPF free ho ye bema flat rate? Why would any government want to do that?
Because uko the actual forefront on the cover by anymore the etymology of your debt problem now.
Yes.
Primarily because expenditures on government government into me meeting. I know somebody will say, and if government is not able to meet the expenditures, then why do you want to give some more taxes out? Because government, this whole thinking say was buying or ye BBA to your BBA. Intino. A buying starts off by programming a lot of expenses in the fiscal framework. Budget to one of the first things out here in the fiscal framework, income, expenditure, and financing a woman fin quite before balance.
Yes.
Accountants force it balance the equation. Okay. Economists they say balance the fiscal framework. Now, who load the expenses now? First option revenue.
Yes.
Revenue no. Once our expenses we are could in a budget. Mr. Speaker, this year we'll do Accra to Kumasi Road. Yeah. Accra to Kumasi in our show. So obey. Now if you would train revenue. January, February, March revenue number, April, May, June, revenue and so contractor also because we can wakobo besia ye adwuma na do 15% or the certificate about twinska. We are buying the abene say obeko capital market no akọ finance wako ton treasury bill na say wako eurobond akọ piska na de bia bitua contractor no. Ubewie na car will pile go over a period in your bid to satisfy the expenditure commitments no e can e kwa na e cost se can be $1 na uti anye yie na unya 1 year depreciation of a significant effect se can 100 million kra $100 million ABA 100 million cedis because it's 1-to-1 depreciation hit to 100 million to me by 300 million now so more besia ba kubia to okay I've had several debates with our friends on the NDC side say change in the debt stock does not mean an increase in borrowing. Okay, into Dr. Baumia say so person who deal with debt problem no pa one of the first things I was saying is also cut your expenses. So to cut expenses, reduce the size of government. I say not more than 50 ministers. A number of things obey. But one big thing I work me about tax question so one big thing I work is also reducing government expenditure by 3% of GDP. But I mean fiscal analysis now. yet the susundua be 2 susundua a percentage of GDP because 100 million there and yet the same as 100 million or China.
Yeah.
And what the 100 million back to 2 GDP in 3% of GDP over 2024 budget of 1 trillion now. 3% of GDP is 30 billion Ghana cedis. Also, you cut 30 billion Ghana cedis from the budget. And then I make say in the debate, no cry analysis no. Now, ebimu per se a bit higher, but in the end, or no economist or running numbers now, I say no, stay at 3%. That's 30 billion. Now, the moment you cut 30 billion of GDP off the expenditure tables, you don't need that 30 billion on the revenue or taxes and even in financing. What am I saying? Until the first thing they say, cut the expenses, 30 billion, or cut no. Now you can afford to do away with some taxes. Until I catch you say taxes be over. 2024 fiscal framework ni de ya ye dia to parliament ato so abawie nti na nkofo because na so obey 11 onyi ne ya ye wi akoto so abawie e de akotre e ma ya bom ho besia na de nyina wi asanse awie ti untumi se be ensan nko wachi nko kan chense ya ye awie no me be bo besia ne nkrata me de bae ni but me ye wie ne sanse candidate obeba 2025 president se obey se nti enne me kwa na ska na enne no obey na etua nti and per se, you can't do those ones. But what seems to be cut by about 30 billion next year. That's about 3% of GDP. Or Katia, he doesn't need all of those taxes. But what am I saying?
Yes.
He doesn't need all of those taxes. And the explanation is that once he doesn't need all of those taxes, he can afford to A, let some of them go, and B, reform the tax system. Into what chair taxes nibia obemanako. 2, reforms, a flat rate. One of the major problems with tax administration is inefficiency and the lack of predictability. My crane man no beka cho say problem back on say we dey name na go contain anymore. We say CIF ni say. But beka ko do Ghana no na unim ni because the dollar na calculate. Say change ya. Ebia wo name na dey kono full say duty on 30,000. Be do ni say duty near 45,000. Into Dr. Bawumia say flat rate asem no can. First rule ni say import duties be CD based and flat rate. Until the container back of spare parts, but when you say container of spare parts, asem count, 40,000 cedis. To buy predictable. Or there be a container of a row babe your factory be when you when you say container back of a row, we say 65,000 cedis. Predictable. But some work I say, oh, massa a born any higher than Togo. Okay. And we're the first part of the flat rate. The second part of the flat rate, they say, or say, and the VAT, we VAT a year. I say, I call levy upon levy. Cascading effect be my did your Tony man. A calculate upon each other. To me soon in out. Also be collapsing into a single levy. No allow for input VAT, output VAT. To make it a single flat levy, I claim mobia into predictability. Say VAT and VAT be brave because of the confusion in the calculation. Number 3, also we call Estonia. Or more income tax rate, a flat rate of 20%. Yenkase income tax, or first 1,000 cedis will be to 12%. Then second 1,000 cedis will be 13%. Then third 1,000 cedis will be their economists friend of progressive tax system. Yenyenesa, or say a flat rate 20%. Inti me mami or ton idea was say so yen ejume we na so nya 10,000 bosomia obi to 20%
of the 10,000.
Kwesichum ojina ketua or yen business. In fact, ojina ketua fa say enye corporate income tax ojina ketua na say na ketua ye kwesichum kwamba yen na mutia. And as a mami nkan wa say 20% flat rate. What I say, but yenka say 20%, ye more rate by a flat rate. So 2 things will happen. One, a simple and predictable. And secondly, they are not journey because of confusion near the end, or to me participate. And also by broaden tax base, Remember I said we are digitizing. Think of be about tax brackets, a bit broaden tax base. Inti obey, not only does he not need 30 billion, but kakrano here and what trim and more people are now paying a better and a more conducive rate. Ni trim uponi, ni swadi honi. Kwesi ada yenu anu mendisi for the manifesto bar. I will say a from better se ni biso senti musu madwin chere
on tax
reforms anything. Cause se baby ayedu no enye eno ana me catch obi se enye kukurudu eyezu eza debi. Eye se issue nini Mahmoud Bawumia eni swadi hu on that issue nenuni. Yewura Mahama wadaroma also weni swadi hu on the same issue any day. Na Ghana for na compare say me hwe mu a we ene beboa.
But flat tax rates, no, don't you think? Because Ebiaka said one tax a redistributive tax policy where you tax more from the rich. Now when you be a redistribute more any binins with the flat tax system, no, where memi sika menya mi 20%, kwesichum sika obenya 20%. That is not an equitable way of
In fact,
taxing.
We are of the view, and the leaders of the view say no more equitable. Say ubia into a proportionate part of the income, but then you're just limited to income tax. When I'm sure, so
sure.
How are we implementing it? Uba VAT regime, no more how are we implementing it? And so kanina buma. The leaders of the view say it brings some more equity, simplicity, predictability in tax administration.
And you don't also think, say, ebema some needed revenue and kabai benya to embark on the bold neomana ma promise, no? Because you need money to implement.
Totally
all of
agreed. But so again, what kind of manifesto now? Or say one of the first things or person and say, or per se, adiebi ana first a buying jibon bo say obey no. O yifi a buying books mo. No the man private sector. Yenya kwanya me pese meche mukakra. Or the no private sector now. He doesn't need government resources
to do those
to do
things.
it. I'll give you a few examples. Uko Kenya, say Ofi Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Bakruma. Or my flyover be to say it's above the normal road. PPP, omnium say Chinese will be in here. Don't see buy number. Ofwa. Edubedu airport within 15 minutes.
You pay something.
And they use it to pay back the cost of that road. The government did not have to literally go and borrow money.
To come and do it.
Yes, I can. Uko America, yeah, Utaiko, yeah, Ukoba, own frame him into Uko America, easy pass road. Utia, that was so. Uba say coin that has a bank coin that has but my private road, easy pass road, register from insurance, my to Tia, ewo. Time modeling, 30 billion, 3% of GDP. Go through the items in the budget that you can move. Then one of the things that came up it says school block, be a dormitory block and a hostel and a house of residence, any school buses. When him said, so school buses are 700 senior high schools now.